Remove that ink. That badge is not for trainees. The words sliced through the afternoon heat like a blade drawn across bone. 80 recruits froze mid-push-up. 12 instructors turned in unison. The physical training yard at Joint Force Training Base fell into a silence so absolute that the distant hum of generators became deafening. Lieutenant Nova Reed held her plank position, arms locked, core engaged, sweat pooling beneath her palms on scorching concrete. She didn't flinch, didn't breathe differently, just maintained perfect form as Colonel Damon Holt's shadow fell across her back like a judgment. His boots scraped against pavement as he moved closer, each step deliberate, calculated, the walk of a man who'd decided the outcome before the trial began. Stand up, trainee. Nova rose in one fluid motion, feet snapping together, hands at her sides. She fixed her gaze on the horizon beyond the fence line, where desert met sky in an endless, unforgiving edge. Not on Holt, never on authority unless ordered. Yes, sir. Holt pointed at her left shoulder. Just above the tank top edge, dark ink peeked out. A wing, curved lines, sharp detail work. That insignia on your shoulder, where did you get it? I earned it, sir. The response hung in the air for 3 seconds. Then laughter rippled through the formation, quiet at first, building like a wave gaining momentum before it crashes. Someone in the third row whispered just loud enough to carry across the yard. Earned it. Sure she did. More laughter. Holt raised one hand and the sound cut off instantly. He took another step forward, close enough that Nova could smell coffee and aftershave, close enough to be intimidation disguised as inspection. You earned an insignia that doesn't appear in any active military database. An insignia from a unit that, according to official records, never existed. Nova's right hand shifted almost imperceptibly. Her fingers brushed the cargo pocket on her thigh. Inside, a challenge coin rested against the fabric. Heavy, cold, real. Her thumb traced its edge through the material. Once, twice, a rhythm older than words. Records can be classified, sir. Convenient. Holt's voice dropped lower, forcing everyone to strain to hear. In the silence, his words carried like hammer strikes. Very convenient. When someone wants to play soldier, when they want the glory without the sacrifice, they get a tattoo. They buy gear online. They learn the terminology, and they think that makes them one of us. He turned to address the full formation, voice rising. This is stolen valor. This is what happens when someone mistakes a needle and ink for blood and service. Nova's jaw tightened. 4-count inhale. 4-count hold. 4-count exhale. 4-count hold. Combat breathing. The kind that keeps your heart rate steady when the world wants you dead. The kind operators drill until it becomes autonomic. Captain Aaron Cole stood 15 feet away, arms crossed, eyes locked on the visible portion of Nova's tattoo. Something about those lines triggered a memory he couldn't quite place. A memory from 5 years ago. Smoke, fire, hands pulling him from a burning vehicle. And on those hands, between glove and sleeve, a flash of ink. An eagle's wing. His pulse quickened. He'd searched for that symbol for years, found nothing, until now. Holt stepped even closer to Nova, invading the formal distance between officer and trainee. You will remove that tattoo. Laser removal takes months, so you have 2 options. Cover it completely at all times, or remove yourself from this program. Do I make myself clear? Crystal, sir. Outstanding. Dismissed to barracks. Report to my office at 1600 hours. We'll discuss your future here. Nova didn't salute. Holt hadn't offered the courtesy. She simply performed an about face, retrieved her jacket from the equipment rack, and walked across the yard. Every eye tracked her movement. Every phone came out. Every whisper followed like a shadow she couldn't shake. Behind her, the formation broke into chaotic clusters. Voices rose. Screens glowed. Within 90 seconds, a photo of her tattoo was already circulating through 3 different group chats. Cole remained motionless, staring at the spot where Nova had stood. His hand moved to his own shoulder, fingers pressing against a scar hidden beneath his uniform. A scar from Kandahar. From 2020. From the day 11 soldiers died and 1 ghost pulled him from the flames. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers, typed 3 words into the search bar. Phantom Crest Kandahar. The results loaded slowly, each one more sanitized than the last. A brief news article. A memorial page with 11 names, all marked KIA. No details, no photographs, no survivors listed. But he'd been there. He remembered. remembered the explosion, the heat, the hands that dragged him into cover, the voice that whispered 4 words before vanishing. Stay down, stay quiet. He'd never seen the face, just the hands. And the ink. Cole zoomed in on one declassified photo. 11 soldiers in desert camouflage, faces half-shadowed by helmet brims, standing before a transport helicopter. In the back row, barely visible, partially obscured by the soldier in front, a 12th figure, smaller frame, leaner build, face turned just enough that the camera caught only profile. But the shoulder was clear, an eagle carrying a sword, the exact same design he'd just seen on Nova Reed. His chest tightened. He glanced toward the administrative building where Holt had disappeared, shoulders squared, stride confident. The walk of a man who believed he'd just eliminated a problem. Cole closed the browser and pocketed his phone. He needed to think, needed to remember details he'd buried because remembering hurt too much. Because 11 names on a wall meant 11 families destroyed. Because survivor's guilt was a weight that never got lighter. But if Nova was who he thought she was, if that tattoo was real, then something else was buried too. The truth. Ever been called fake when you earned it in blood? Hit that like if you believe some truths don't need defending. They defend themselves. And subscribe, because this reveal will rewrite everything you think you know about silence. The dining facility at 1800 hours was controlled chaos. Metal trays clattering against rails, voices bouncing off industrial walls, the smell of reheated protein and overcooked vegetables thick enough to taste. Nova moved through the line with mechanical precision. Chicken breast, steamed broccoli, brown rice, water. Nothing extra, no deviations. She found a table in the corner, back against the wall, unobstructed view of both exits. Old habits. The kind that kept you breathing when the world conspired otherwise. She'd taken exactly 3 bites when Lieutenant Bryce Garrett slid into the seat directly across from her. He didn't ask permission, didn't wait for an invitation, just sat down and placed his phone on the table between them, screen facing up. The image was crystal clear. Nova's shoulder, the tattoo, zoomed in, contrast enhanced, already posted to the base social network with a caption that read, "Wannabe playing dress-up. Who does this?" 78 shares in 2 hours, Garrett said, leaning back with the satisfied grin of someone who'd just won a bet. People really love a good fraud story. Nova looked at the phone, then at her food. She picked up her fork and resumed eating. Garrett's grin widened. No defense, no explanation, not even a little anger. Nova chewed slowly, swallowed, set down her fork with precise control. Ink fades, records don't. Records. Garrett laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. I checked, Reed, checked hard. No unit called Phantom Crest in any active or historical database. No deployment records for Lieutenant Nova Reed matching your description. You're a ghost, and not even a convincing one. Nova took a sip of water, met his eyes with the kind of calm that comes from seeing worse things than social media mockery. You done? Garrett stood, snatching his phone from the table. Yeah, enjoy your last few meals here, wannabe. Holt's going to bury you. He walked away, already typing, thumbs moving fast across the screen. Nova watched him go, counted to 10, then pulled out her own phone. Older model, encrypted lock screen, no personal apps, no social media. She opened a single application. No name. Just a string of numbers that changed every 72 hours. Inside, 1 contact. Also unnamed. Just another number string. She typed 4 words with economical precision. Phase 1 complete, he's moving. The reply came within 5 seconds. Maintain cover, 72 hours. Nova deleted both messages. The app erased all traces automatically. She locked the phone, slipped it back into her pocket, and finished her meal in silence. Across the dining facility, Specialist Mara Lynn sat alone with her own tray, eyes flicking between her food and Nova's corner. She'd watched the entire interaction with Garrett, seen the phone, the post, the shares climbing. She knew that feeling, the weight of being the target, the helplessness of watching your reputation shredded by people who didn't care about truth. 6 months ago, she'd been exactly where Nova sat now, accused of losing sensitive communications equipment. Her name dragged through every chat, every conversation, every whispered judgment. The equipment had turned up 2 weeks later in a supply locker that Colonel Holt himself had authorized and signed off on. No apology, no correction. just a quiet transfer to a different unit and a permanent note in her personnel file that would follow her like a curse. Lynn looked at Nova again, at the way she sat, posture perfect, movements economical, expression neutral, like someone who'd survived worse than gossip and learned not to waste energy on battles she couldn't win yet. Lynn pulled out her phone and navigated to Garrett's post, read the comments, laughing emojis, angry reactions, calls to have her removed from the program. One comment read, "Stolen valor trash, should be in jail." Her finger hovered over the reply button. She wanted to defend Nova, wanted to point out that maybe, just maybe, there was more to the story. But she'd learned the hard way that defending the accused only made you the next target. She closed the app and put her phone away. Not yet, but soon. Nova finished her meal, bussed her tray with the same mechanical precision she applied to everything, and walked out into the evening heat. No one stopped her. No one spoke directly. Just eyes. Dozens of them. Tracking, judging, recording. Outside, the temperature had dropped from unbearable to merely oppressive. She walked toward the barracks, taking the long route past the memorial wall. 11 names carved into black granite. 11 bronze plaques with faces she'd known, voices she'd heard, promises she'd made. She stopped in front of the wall, read each name silently, traced the letters with her eyes, not her hands. She'd done enough touching in dreams that lasted longer than sleep should allow. Her right hand moved to her pocket, pulled out the challenge coin. She held it in her palm, feeling its weight. One side showed an eagle in flight, talons extended. The other side bore a code etched in block letters. She ran her thumb over the grooves, feeling each ridge, each valley. This coin had been pressed into her palm by a commander who died 6 hours later. 11 coins for 11 soldiers, all recovered from the wreckage. But 12 coins had been issued. One for the ghost who survived. Nova pocketed the coin and continued to the barracks. Behind her, the sun touched the ridgeline, painting the sky in shades of rust and ash, colors she associated with fire, with burning metal, with choices that haunt you forever. The barracks were quiet. Most trainees were still at evening formation or the recreation building. Nova's room was at the end of the hall. Small, sparse, exactly how she needed it. She sat on her bunk, back against the wall, and pulled out a small notebook. Not digital, paper. Pen, the kind of record that couldn't be hacked or traced. Inside were dates, times, observations, a pattern she'd been tracking since she arrived 3 weeks ago. Holt's schedule, his meetings, his phone calls, the times he stepped outside to take certain calls, the contractors who visited his office, the supply orders that didn't quite match inventory. She'd been patient, careful, invisible, playing the role of mediocre trainee who barely deserved to be here, and Holt had taken the bait exactly as planned. Now came the hard part, maintaining the cover while he escalated, because men like Holt didn't just dismiss threats, they eliminated them. And every elimination attempt would give her exactly what she needed: evidence. The next morning arrived with the pre-dawn siren at 05:30. Nova dressed in darkness, laced her boots with practiced efficiency, and joined the flow of bodies moving toward the PT yard for formation. Colonel Holt stood at the front, clipboard in hand, face carved from stone. Beside him stood the 3 senior instructors, including Captain Cole, who kept his expression neutral despite the questions burning behind his eyes. "Today's evaluation," Holt announced, voice cutting through morning chill, "will determine your leadership qualification scores. This assessment is non-negotiable. Fail, and you repeat the entire training cycle. Succeed, and you advance." His eyes found Nova in the formation, held her gaze for 3 seconds too long. "Assuming, of course, you're still enrolled by day's end." Scattered laughter, mostly from the same people who'd shared Garrett's post. Nova stood at ease, face betraying nothing. Cole watched the interaction, jaw tight, hands clasped behind his back. Holt called the first group forward: standard obstacle course, rope climb, wall traverse, low crawl under concertina wire, fireman's carry for 50 meters. Nova's group was third. She moved to the start line with 4 others. All of them kept distance, as if incompetence might be contagious. One of them, Sergeant Kyle Brennan, made a show of checking his boots, then glanced at Nova. "Try not to slow us down, wannabe." Nova said nothing, just focused on the course ahead. Calculated approach angles, identified efficient paths, prepared her body for execution. The whistle blew. Nova exploded forward. Her first 3 steps were textbook acceleration, weight transferring through her legs with coiled power. She hit the rope before 2 others had fully started moving. Her hands gripped the rope with thumb-over technique, not the amateur's desperate clutch, the operator's controlled lock. She ascended in smooth, powerful pulls, legs coiling and releasing in perfect rhythm, core stabilizing every movement. Cole's eyes narrowed. That wasn't trainee form. That was operator form. Expensive training, thousands of repetitions, muscle memory carved into nervous system through pain and repetition. At the top, Nova touched the beam and descended in a controlled drop, landing in a deep crouch that absorbed all impact through her legs, no stress on her spine. She was already moving before Brennan reached the rope. The wall came next. 8 feet of vertical wood with minimal holds. Nova's fingers found grips that others missed, her body angling to maximize leverage, minimizing wasted effort. She cleared the top and dropped to the far side, rolling through the impact, converting downward momentum into forward movement. The low crawl followed. Concertina wire strung 18 inches above hard-packed dirt. Nova flattened, elbows driving, hips low, head down. She moved like something that had learned to disappear into terrain to become part of the ground itself. She crossed the finish line first, not by seconds, by a full 45 count. Holt made a mark on his clipboard. Didn't look up, didn't acknowledge the time. Next group. Nova moved to the rest area, breathing steady, not even winded. Cole approached with a water bottle extended. She took it with a nod of thanks. "Where did you train?" Cole asked quietly, voice low enough that only she could hear. Nova drank, handed the bottle back. "Classified, sir. That grip on the rope, the descent control, that's not basic infantry." "No, sir, it's not." "You know what units use that exact technique?" Nova looked at him directly. Her eyes were clear, calm, and completely unreadable, like looking at still water with unknown depth. "I couldn't say, sir." Cole opened his mouth to press further, but Holt's voice cut across the yard like a whip crack. "Captain Cole, a word, now." Cole glanced at Nova, then walked toward Holt, who stood near the equipment shed with an expression that promised nothing good. "What are you doing?" Holt demanded, voice low and dangerous. "Observing the evaluation, sir. It's my duty as range instructor." "You're fraternizing with a confirmed liar." "With respect, sir, she just posted the fastest obstacle time this entire training cycle by a significant margin." Holt stepped closer, invading Cole's personal space. "She's a fraud, and you're giving her legitimacy by engaging in conversation." Cole held his ground. "If she's a fraud, sir, the verification process will prove it. If she's not..." "She is." Holt's voice went cold. "And I'm giving you a direct order, Captain. Stay away from that trainee. Do not speak to her. Do not evaluate her separately. Do not provide any assistance or appearance of support. Is that understood?" Cole's jaw worked. He wanted to argue, wanted to pull out his phone and show Holt the photo, the memorial, the questions that had kept him awake for 3 nights straight. But Holt was his commanding officer, and chain of command was absolute. "Understood, sir." "Excellent. Dismissed." Cole walked back to his position on the sideline. He didn't leave, didn't stop watching, just stood with arms crossed, observing everything, filing away details for later. By midday, the whispers had evolved into open taunts. In the equipment room, Sergeant Brennan deliberately shouldered past Nova hard enough to make her stumble. She caught herself on the doorframe, said nothing. "Watch it, Ghost," Brennan said, grinning at 2 nearby trainees. "Wouldn't want you to break something. Fake soldiers don't get medical coverage." The 2 trainees laughed. Nova straightened, adjusted her grip on the equipment bag she'd been carrying, and walked past without a word. Brennan called after her. "What's wrong? Tattoo artist didn't teach you how to talk back?" Nova kept walking. Brennan moved to follow, but Cole materialized in his path like a wall. "Stand down, Sergeant." Brennan's grin faded. "Sir, I know exactly what you were doing. Don't do it again." Brennan glanced past Cole at Nova's retreating form, then back to the captain. Something in Cole's expression made him reconsider whatever he'd been about to say. "Yes, sir." Cole watched Nova disappear around the corner, then turned back to the equipment room. He needed to make contact with someone outside the base, someone who could access files above his clearance level. Because if Nova was who he thought she was, then Holt wasn't just wrong. He was dangerous. That afternoon at 1400 hours, Nova was summoned to the administration building. Not by announcement, not by messenger. Lieutenant Garrett delivered the news personally, appearing at the armory door where Nova was conducting inventory checks. "Colonel wants you in his office, something about verifying your service record." Garrett's smirk was venomous. "Should be entertaining." Nova set down the inventory clipboard, ensured the weapon rack was secured, and walked across the base. The administration building was older construction, poured concrete and narrow windows, built back when function mattered infinitely more than aesthetics. Inside, the air conditioning was aggressive, almost punishing. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with that particular frequency that triggers headaches. Holt's office was second floor, end of the hall. The door stood open. Nova stepped into the doorway and stopped. This wasn't a simple meeting. Holt sat behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. 3 other officers flanked him. A formal panel, an official proceeding. This was a tribunal disguised as a conversation. "Close the door, Lieutenant," Holt said. Nova stepped inside and pulled the door shut. The click of the latch sounded final. "Sit." She sat, hands on her knees, back straight, eyes forward. Holt slid a folder across the desk. "Your service record request came back this morning. Care to explain the result?" Nova opened the folder. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Her name, her rank, her date of enlistment, and stamped across the middle in bold red letters, "Classification conflict, access denied." "I can't explain it, sir," Nova said evenly. "It's classified above my authorization to discuss." One of the flanking officers, a major with steel-gray temples, leaned forward. "Classified or non-existent?" "Classified, sir." "How convenient." The major's tone dripped skepticism. "We have no way to verify your claims, and you hide behind classification protocols." Nova didn't respond, just looked at the paper, then back at the panel with the same neutral expression she'd maintained since entering. Holt tapped his pen against the desk in a slow, deliberate rhythm. "Lieutenant Garrett provided sworn testimony that you admitted to purchasing the tattoo from an online artist. That it was, in your own words, a tribute to fallen soldiers you never served with." Nova's expression didn't shift. "That's a lie, sir." "So Lieutenant Garrett is lying, and you're telling the truth?" "Yes, sir. And we're supposed to simply believe you." "I'm not asking you to believe me, sir. I'm stating facts. My record is classified. Lieutenant Garrett's testimony is false. Those are the facts." The third officer, a captain with sharp features and calculating eyes, spoke next. Her voice was softer, almost sympathetic. "Lieutenant Reed, we're trying to give you an opportunity to explain. If there's a legitimate reason your records are sealed, if you can provide context, we can work through proper verification channels." Nova met her eyes, held them. Something unspoken passed between them, a question the captain didn't voice and Nova didn't answer. "I can't provide that context, ma'am. Not without legal counsel present." Holt's pen stopped tapping. "Legal counsel, now you're lawyering up." "I'm protecting my career and my clearances, sir." "Your career." Holt stood, both palms flat on the desk, leaning forward. "You don't have a career here, Lieutenant. You have a fabrication, a story, a tattoo, and an attitude." He straightened, picking up another paper from his desk. "I'm giving you 24 hours. Either produce verifiable documentation that explains the classification conflict or voluntarily withdraw from this program. Those are your only options." Nova stood as well, mirroring his formality. "And if I refuse both, sir? Then you'll face formal charges, fraudulent enlistment, stolen valor, conduct unbecoming, the full weight of the UCMJ. You'll be dishonorably discharged and likely face criminal prosecution." The room fell into heavy silence. Nova's hand drifted to her pocket, fingers brushing the challenge coin through the fabric. She wanted to pull it out. Wanted to set it on that desk and watch their faces change. Watch Holt's confidence crumble. But not yet. Not here. Not like this. 24 hours, Holt repeated, voice hard as iron. "Dismissed." Nova executed a perfect about-face and walked out. The door closed behind her with that same heavy, final click. She moved down the hallway, boots echoing on tile, mind already calculating. 72 hours, the message had said. She was at hour 51 now. 21 hours remaining. She could hold. She'd held against worse. At the bottom of the stairs, Cole was waiting. He looked up as she descended, face tight with something between concern and barely controlled anger. "I heard," he said quietly. "Then you know I can't discuss it." "I know you won't." Cole stepped closer, lowering his voice to barely above a whisper. But I also know that tattoo isn't fake. Nova stopped on the last step, now eye level with him. How would you know that, sir? Because I've seen it before. Kandahar, 2020. On someone who pulled me out of a burning vehicle and told me to stay quiet. Nova's face gave nothing away, but her fingers stopped moving on the coin. Cole continued, words coming faster now. I never saw their face, just their hand on my chest, pressing me into cover. And on that hand, between the glove and sleeve, a piece of ink, an eagle's wing, same design as yours, same line work. Lots of people have eagle tattoos, Captain. Not like that one. Not with those specific lines, that exact curve. He paused, studying her face for any crack in the facade. I looked it up. Phantom crest. 11 confirmed KIA. No survivors listed anywhere. Then maybe I'm a ghost, sir. Or maybe the list is incomplete. Nova studied him in return, weighed him, calculated risk versus benefit, made a decision. 24 hours, Captain. After that, it won't matter what you remember or what you think you know. She walked past him, out into the afternoon sun that hit like a physical force. Cole stood in the stairwell, hands clenched at his sides, mind racing through possibilities and implications. He pulled out his phone again, opened a contact he hadn't used in 3 years, a friend from law school who'd specialized in military justice and classification disputes. He typed quickly. Need urgent help accessing sealed military records. Name, Nova Reed. Unit affiliation, Phantom Crest. This is time sensitive. The reply came 45 seconds later. Phantom Crest is black file, way above my clearance. Whatever she's involved in, it's compartmentalized at the highest levels. Be very careful, Aaron. People who dig into black files sometimes disappear into them. Cole stared at the screen. Black file. The kind of operations that didn't exist on paper. The kind of soldiers who couldn't defend themselves because doing so would expose missions that had to stay buried. He looked up, through the window, toward the barracks where Nova had gone. If she was black file, if she was operating under deep cover, then Holt had just painted a target on someone the government couldn't afford to lose or expose. And if Holt knew that, if he was doing this anyway, then the question wasn't whether Nova was lying. The question was what Holt was hiding that was worth destroying a black file operator to protect. That evening, Mara Lynn sat in her quarters, laptop open, headphones blocking outside noise. She'd been reviewing archived surveillance footage from the base network, looking for something she couldn't quite name but would recognize when she found it. She found it at 21:45 hours. A call log, 6 months old. Outgoing call from Colonel Holt's office phone to an unlisted number. Duration, 7 minutes, 33 seconds. Date, 3 days before the official Phantom Crest memorial service. Lynn cross-referenced the number through publicly available databases. It traced back to a registered business address for a company called Meridian Defense Solutions, not a major contractor. Mid-tier. The kind that handled logistics, transport, equipment procurement, the kind that would benefit enormously from advanced knowledge of troop movements and deployment schedules. She opened another file. Call logs from 5 years ago, the week of the Kandahar incident, same unlisted number, same company. Calls placed the day before the operation, the day of, and 3 times in the 48 hours following. Lynn's hands started shaking. She typed a new search query, Phantom Crest withdrawal authorization. The file loaded slowly, heavily redacted in places, but the signature at the bottom was clear and unambiguous. Colonel Damon Holt. Authorization to recall unit from forward operating position. Reason listed. Logistical resource conflict. She captured screenshots, saved them to 3 separate encrypted drives, then pulled out her phone and started recording audio. She needed insurance, needed proof that couldn't be confiscated or erased. Because if Holt had ordered the Phantom Crest withdrawal to cover something, if he'd been in contact with defense contractors immediately before and after 11 soldiers died, and if Nova was one of the survivors, then this wasn't about stolen valor at all. This was about silencing a witness. Lynn closed her laptop and stood, pacing the small room. She thought about going to Cole, about showing him what she'd found. But Cole was bound by chain of command. He couldn't act without proper authorization, and getting that authorization would take time they didn't have. Nova, though. Nova wasn't bound by those same constraints. Nova was something else entirely. Lynn grabbed her jacket and headed for the barracks. Nova sat on her bunk, back against the concrete wall, challenge coin balanced on her knee. She'd been running scenarios in her mind, calculating probabilities, preparing for the moment when Holt would push too far and force her hand. A soft knock on the door frame, hesitant, careful. "It's open." Mara Lynn stepped inside, closing the door behind her with deliberate quietness. She held up her phone, screen showing the call logs and withdrawal authorization. "I know what he did," Lynn said, voice barely above a whisper, "and I can prove it." Nova looked at the screen, then at Lynn. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because 6 months ago, he did the same thing to me. Smaller scale, but same pattern. He used me to cover his mistake, then buried me when I got too close to the truth. And you think helping me will change your situation? No?" Lynn sat on the edge of the opposite bunk. "I think exposing him will prevent him from doing it to someone else, again and again, until someone stops him." Nova studied her, saw the anger barely contained, the fear underneath, the desperate need for justice. She recognized it because she'd worn the same expression once. "If you give me those files, you become part of this. It won't be clean. It won't be easy." "I know. They'll investigate you, question you, possibly retaliate." "I know," Lynn repeated, stronger this time. "But I'm already buried. At least this way, I take him down with me." Nova reached out, took the phone, examined the logs, the authorization signature, the pattern that proved everything she'd suspected. She handed the phone back. "Send me encrypted copies, multiple file formats, then delete everything from your device and any cloud storage, wipe it completely." "What are you going to do?" Nova stood, walking to the small window. Outside, the base was settling into night, lights flickering on, voices fading, the illusion of safety. "I'm going to make him prove it himself," Nova said. "Tomorrow, at whatever confrontation he's planning, he'll have to choose. Admit he's wrong or double down to protect himself. If he doubles down, he'll expose the real reason he wants me gone." "What if he admits he's wrong?" "He won't." Nova's voice was certain, absolute. "Men like him never do. They can't. Because admitting one lie means admitting all of them." Lynn nodded slowly. "What do you need from me?" "Just the files. And your silence. When this breaks, when everything comes out, you were never here tonight. We never had this conversation, understood?" "Understood." Lynn stood, moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the frame. "For what it's worth, I believe you. Thank you." Lynn left, closing the door softly. Nova returned to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Tomorrow, the 24 hours would expire. Tomorrow, Holt would call her in front of witnesses and demand she prove herself or leave. Tomorrow, she'd show him exactly what he'd sacrificed 5 years ago when he signed that withdrawal order. Not just 11 soldiers. 12. The base siren wailed at 0600 hours, 2 hours earlier than normal. Emergency formation. All personnel report to PT Yard immediately. No exceptions, no delays. Nova, dressed in darkness with practiced efficiency, pulled on her boots, laced them tight, slipped the challenge coin into her left cargo pocket where it rested against her thigh like a talisman. She walked out of the barracks and joined the flow of confused bodies moving toward the yard. The sun was just beginning to crest the ridgeline, painting everything in sharp, unforgiving angles of light and shadow. 80 recruits formed up in rows. 12 instructors lined the edges, and at the front, standing on a raised platform, Colonel Holt waited with the patience of a hunter who'd already positioned his trap. He let the silence build until every face turned toward him. Then he spoke, voice amplified through speakers that made him sound larger than life. "This morning, we address a matter of integrity, of honor, of the sacred trust we place in those who wear this uniform and claim to be part of our brotherhood." He gestured to the side with one hand. "Lieutenant Nova Reed, front and center." Nova stepped out of formation, walked across the yard with measured steps. Every eye followed, every breath held. She stopped at the base of the platform, stood at attention, hands at her sides, gaze fixed forward. Holt looked down at her from his elevated position. "Yesterday I gave you 24 hours to produce verifiable documentation of your service record. Have you done so?" "No, sir." "Then you admit your record cannot be verified through official channels." "I admit my record is classified beyond standard verification protocols, sir." "Classified." Holt let the word hang, then turned to address the full formation. This is what happens when someone mistakes a tattoo parlor for a recruiting station, when they think stolen ink and memorized terminology make them a warrior. He looked back at Nova, eyes hard. Remove your jacket. Show everyone what you're hiding under that fabric. Nova's jaw tightened. This was the moment, the forced reveal, the point where she either complied and lost control of the narrative, or refused and gave him grounds for immediate disciplinary action. She made her choice. Slowly, with deliberate control, she unzipped her jacket, peeled it off her shoulders, let it fall to the ground at her feet. Underneath, a black tank top. And on her left shoulder, fully visible now in the harsh morning light, the complete tattoo. An eagle in flight, talons gripping a sword. Below the eagle, between the wingtips, letters etched in clean, precise script. 07 Alpha, Phantom Crest. And below that, running from shoulder to ribs, a scar, long, jagged, irregular. The kind left by shrapnel when an IED turns a vehicle into fragments and fire. The yard went completely silent. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then someone gasped. The sound broke like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward. Another gasp. A whispered curse. Phones lowered. Eyes widened. Captain Aaron Cole stepped forward from the instructor line, his movement cutting through the frozen tableau like a blade. His eyes locked onto the tattoo. The eagle, the sword, the numbers and letters he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. His voice carried across the yard, steady but tight with recognition. "Sir, that's not a replica." Holt's face shifted, confident to confused in the span of a heartbeat. "Captain, I didn't give you permission to—" "With respect, sir, that tattoo is real." Nova reached into her cargo pocket, pulled out the challenge coin. She took 3 steps forward and set it on the platform at Holt's feet with a metallic ring that echoed like a gunshot in the silence. The coin spun once before settling, eagle facing up. Holt stared down at it. His face went pale, actually pale, the color draining like water from a broken vessel. Cole moved closer, climbing the platform steps. He bent down, picked up the coin, turned it over in his hands. His fingers traced the engraving on the reverse side. Crest 07 Alpha, KDH 2020. His hands started shaking. He looked up at Holt, then at Nova, then back at the coin. "This is real," he whispered. Then louder, voice cracking slightly. "Sir, this is real. Only 11 of these were issued, all to members of Phantom Crest, all confirmed killed in action in Kandahar 2020. "Then how does she have one?" Holt demanded, but his voice had lost its edge. It sounded defensive now, cornered. Nova spoke for the first time since removing her jacket. Her voice was calm, cold, surgical. "Because there were 12, sir, not 11. The formation erupted, voices rising, recruits turning to each other, instructors moving forward. Lieutenant Garrett stood frozen in the 3rd row, phone still in his hand, the post he'd shared, suddenly feeling like evidence of his own stupidity. Cole pulled out his phone with trembling fingers, opened the photo he'd saved days ago, the declassified memorial image, the 11 soldiers in desert camouflage, and in the back row, barely visible, the 12th figure. He held the phone up, zooming in on the shoulder visible in that old photograph. "This is from the official memorial file," Cole said, voice gaining strength. "Declassified 3 years ago. Look at the back row." Several instructors crowded closer to see the screen. Nova stood perfectly still, watching Holt's face as the reality closed in around him like walls. Holt's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That could be anyone. That photo doesn't prove... Marilyn stepped forward from the crowd of recruits. She walked with purpose across the yard, tablet in hand. She climbed the platform steps and stopped beside Cole. "Captain Cole, Colonel Holt, you need to see this." She handed the tablet to Cole. He took it, eyes scanning the screen. His expression went from confusion to shock to anger in the span of 10 seconds. "What is this?" he asked. Lynn's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Call log, sir. From Colonel Holt's office phone to an unlisted defense contractor. Meridian Defense Solutions. Dates matching the week before, during, and after the Phantom Crest operation in Kandahar." The yard went silent again. But this was a different silence. Heavy, dangerous. Cole looked at Holt. "Sir, is this true?" Holt's face went from pale to red. That's classified information. She had no authority to access. It's not classified if it's evidence of criminal activity, sir, Lynn interrupted. And according to the Federal Acquisition Regulation, communication between command officers and defense contractors regarding active operations requires documentation and oversight. These calls had neither. Cole scrolled through the tablet, his jaw tightened with every line he read. Sir, this shows you received calls from Meridian Defense Solutions on the 15th, 17th, and 19th of June 2020. Phantom Crest was deployed on the 16th. The operation went critical on the 18th. You issued a withdrawal authorization on the 19th at 0900 hours. He looked up from the tablet, voice dropping lower, colder. 4 hours after your last conversation with the contractor. 4 hours before the IED strike that killed 11 soldiers. The formation was no longer silent. Voices rose, angry, confused, demanding answers. Holt raised both hands. This is circumstantial. Phone calls don't prove. There's more, sir, Lynn said. She pulled out her phone, opened a file, pressed play. Audio crackled through the phone's speaker. Tinny but clear. Holt's voice. The unit needs to pull back. I don't care what the tactical assessment says. Logistical resources are insufficient. Authorization is final. Another voice. Unfamiliar. And the shipment routes? Adjusted as discussed. Your trucks won't encounter any complications. Silence on the recording. Then Holt again. This conversation never happened. Understood, Colonel. The payment will be processed as agreed. The recording ended. Lynn lowered her phone. The entire base had heard it. 80 recruits, 12 instructors. Every face turned toward Holt with expressions ranging from shock to fury. Holt stared at Lynn, then at the phone, then at the crowd. His mouth worked, but no sound came out. He looked like a man watching his entire world collapse in real time. Cole descended from the platform slowly. He walked to where Nova stood and handed her the challenge coin. Lieutenant Reed, on behalf of this command, I apologize for doubting you, for not recognizing what should have been obvious. Nova took the coin, closed her fist around it. Thank you, Captain. Cole turned back to Holt. Sir, you need to step down from that platform. I don't take orders from you, Captain. Then you'll take them from me. The voice came from the edge of the formation. Everyone turned. A man in a dark suit walked across the yard. Tall, lean, sunglasses despite the early hour. He carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who didn't need to announce credentials. Agent Elias Cross, CIA. He reached the platform, pulled out a badge, held it up for 3 seconds. Long enough for everyone to see the seal. Then he lowered it. Colonel Damon Holt, I'm placing you under investigative detention pending formal charges of conspiracy to commit treason, unauthorized disclosure of classified operational information, and accepting bribes from foreign adjacent contractors. Holt's face went from red to ashen. This is insane. You can't just... I can and I am. Step down from the platform, sir. Cross gestured. 2 more agents emerged from a vehicle that had pulled up silently during the confrontation. They climbed the platform, positioned themselves on either side of Holt. Sir, please come with us. Holt looked around wildly, at the formation, at the instructors, at Nova, who stood watching with that same calm expression she'd maintained throughout. You set me up, he said to her, voice hoarse. This whole thing. You planned it. Nova met his eyes. No anger, no triumph. Just cold, measured certainty. No, sir. I gave you multiple opportunities to do the right thing. You chose the wrong one, every step of the way. Every order you gave, every file you blocked, every lie you told. You did this to yourself. The agents guided Holt down from the platform, not roughly, but firmly. He didn't resist physically, but his voice rose as they led him toward the vehicle. This isn't over. I have lawyers. I have connections. You'll regret this. Nova's voice followed him, quiet but carrying in the morning air. 11 people already regret trusting you, sir. They just can't tell you that anymore. Holt was loaded into the SUV. The doors closed. The vehicle rolled away, leaving the yard in stunned silence. Cross turned to Nova, extended his hand. Lieutenant Reed, good to see you vertical. Agent Cross, you cut it close. I had 72 hours. I used 71 and 53 minutes. Cross smiled thinly. Always did push the margins. He looked at Cole. Captain, you're being read into a classified briefing. Come with me. Cole glanced at Nova. She nodded once. He followed Cross toward a second vehicle parked near the admin building. Nova stood alone on the yard for a moment. Then she bent down, picked up her jacket, pulled it back on, zipped it slowly. The tattoo disappeared beneath fabric once more. She turned to face the formation. 80 faces stared back. No more laughter. No more whispers. Just silence, heavy with reckoning. Lieutenant Garrett stood in the third row, phone hanging limp in his hand. Sergeant Brennan was 2 rows back, face pale. Nova walked toward them, stopped directly in front of Garrett. "You posted my photograph," she said quietly. "Called me a fraud, 96 shares. Garrett swallowed hard. "I didn't know. I thought—" "You didn't think. You wanted the story, wanted the attention." She stepped closer. "Now you're going to help me finish this. Pull every communication log between Holt and Meridian Defense Solutions for the last 6 years. Cross-reference with deployment schedules. Build the timeline." "I don't have clearance for—" "You'll get it. Agent Cross will authorize access, and you'll work until it's complete." Garrett looked around. No one was going to save him. He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." Nova turned to Brennan. "Sergeant, you shoved me yesterday. Called me a ghost." Brennan straightened, trying to maintain some dignity. "That was before I know what it was before. Now you're going to learn the difference between strength and intimidation. Self-defense training starts Monday. You're my partner, every day, until I'm satisfied you understand respect." Brennan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Nova stepped back, addressing the entire formation. "Ink fades, records don't. But more important than either is this. Respect isn't given because of rank or reputation. It's earned through action, through integrity, through standing up when it's easier to stay silent." She walked off the yard. Behind her, the formation slowly dissolved. Whispers started again, but different now. Not mocking, awed, respectful, afraid. "Justice isn't loud. It's patient. Smash that subscribe button if you believe the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to survive. And hit thanks to support more stories where silence becomes the loudest weapon." In a small briefing room inside the admin building, Cole sat across from Agent Cross. A file lay open on the table between them. "Phantom Crest was a joint task force," Cross explained, voice matter-of-fact. 12 operators. Mission objective: identify and disrupt weapons smuggling networks operating between Kandahar and Pakistani border regions. They were effective. Too effective. Someone on the inside tipped off the smugglers. Contractors who were profiting from the chaos. Cole leaned forward, and Holt issued a withdrawal order. "Correct. Under the pretense of logistical resource constraints. But 11 members of the team were already in position for a critical intercept. They couldn't extract in time. The smugglers knew they were coming. IED strike took out the entire convoy." "And Nova?" "She was operating as tactical coordinator from a secondary position. When the convoy went up, she went dark. Spent 14 weeks in theater tracking the leak. Came home with suspicions, but no proof. Until now." Cole rubbed his face. "So this entire thing, the trainee role, the tattoo confrontation, it was all designed to make Holt reveal himself." "Precisely. We needed him to act, to show his hand, to create evidence we could use in court. Nova volunteered to be the catalyst. You let her walk into that." "She insisted." Cross closed the file. 11 of her people died because someone sold them out. She's been waiting 5 years for a chance to prove it. We gave her the tools. She executed the plan." Cole leaned back, processing. "What happens now?" "Now we build the case. Holt will stand trial. Military and civilian charges. If convicted, he's looking at life imprisonment, possibly death penalty depending on how aggressive the prosecution wants to be." "And Nova?" Cross stood. "Nova goes back to work. There are other operations, other threats, other people who need someone willing to stand in the fire." Cole stood as well. "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why did she give me the coin, before she knew how this would end?" Cross walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "Because if something went wrong, if Holt had managed to eliminate her before we could intervene, she needed someone to remember, someone to tell the truth when she couldn't. She chose you." He walked out, leaving Cole alone with that weight. Cole left the building 20 minutes later, found Nova sitting outside on a bench near the memorial wall, staring at the 11 names carved in granite. He sat down beside her, didn't speak immediately, just sat. After a long silence, Nova broke it. "You asked me where I trained. I did. Everywhere, nowhere. Places that don't exist on maps, with people who don't exist in databases. And the people you trained with? Most of them are on that wall. She gestured toward the memorial. The rest are scattered, doing the work that can't be acknowledged. Cole nodded. I'm sorry for what happened to them. Don't be sorry. They knew the risks, accepted them, same as I did. What happens next? For you? Nova pulled the challenge coin from her pocket, held it between them, turning it slowly so the light caught the engraving. I finish what they started. She stood, handed him the coin. Keep this. Make sure it ends up on the memorial wall with the others. Eventually. Cole took the coin, feeling its weight. Eventually. Meaning you're leaving. In 48 hours. There's still work to do. Nova, Captain, she cut him off gently. Thank you for believing me when you had no reason to, for standing up when it cost you something. That's more than most people would do. She started to walk away. Cole called after her. If you don't come back, then you tell the story. The real one. Not the sanitized version. Not the convenient lie. The truth. She walked toward the barracks, leaving Cole on the bench with the coin heavy in his palm and a promise heavy on his conscience. The next morning, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Vance arrived to assume temporary command. She was older, gray-haired, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing and forgave even less. Her first action was to call a formation. Her first words were carefully chosen. Changes are coming. Effective immediately, we will conduct a comprehensive review of all training protocols, command accountability measures, and communication procedures. If you have witnessed misconduct, you will have protected channels to report it. If you have evidence of wrongdoing, you will be shielded from retaliation. She paused, scanning the formation with those sharp eyes. This base was built on trust. Trust that leadership acts with integrity. Trust that the uniform stands for something beyond personal gain. We lost that trust. We're going to earn it back. One decision at a time. One action at a time. Applause started small, then grew. Nova stood in the back row, arms at her sides, face neutral. She didn't clap. Words were easy. Actions were what mattered. Vance would prove herself through choices, not speeches. After formation, Vance called Nova to her office. Lieutenant Reed, sit. Nova sat. Vance slid a folder across the desk. Commendations for Specialist Lynn, Lieutenant Garrett, and Sergeant Brennan. They cooperated with the investigation, provided evidence, testified truthfully despite potential consequences. They're being reassigned to a new oversight unit focused on accountability and transparency. They earned it, Nova said. So did you. Vance pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside, a medal, bronze, simple, no flourishes. For service above and beyond reasonable expectation. For integrity under extreme pressure. For refusing to let injustice stand unchallenged. Nova took the box, looked at the medal, started to close it. Ma'am, I didn't do this for recognition. I know, but the 11 people on that wall deserve acknowledgement that someone fought for them. This is how we remember, how we honor. Nova opened the box again, nodded slowly. Thank you, ma'am. Vance leaned back. Agent Cross left a message for you. Trial proceedings begin in 8 weeks. Prosecution wants you to testify. I'll be there. He also left this. Vance handed over another folder. Job offer, analyst position, stateside, no field work, strategy and research. Nova didn't open it. I'm not suited for desk work, ma'am. I know, but the offer stands. If you ever want to stop running toward danger and start directing others away from it, I'll consider it. No, you won't. Nova almost smiled. Almost. No, ma'am, I won't. She stood. Vance stood as well. Lieutenant, off the record. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. For doing what needed to be done. For not backing down. We need more soldiers like you. With respect, ma'am, you need more leaders like you. Soldiers like me only exist because leadership fails. Vance absorbed that. Nodded. Point taken. Dismissed. Nova walked out carrying the metal box and the unopened job offer. She found Cole waiting outside, leaning against the building wall. You kept the coin, she said. You told me to. I'm not dead yet. So I noticed. Then I'll take it back. She held out her hand. Cole pulled the coin from his pocket but didn't immediately hand it over. What if I said I want to keep it as a reminder? Of what? That some people still fight for the right reasons. Nova studied him, then she lowered her hand. Keep it then. But when I come back, I'm taking it. When you come back, Cole repeated. Not if. Not if. Cole pocketed the coin again. Where are you going? Classified. Of course it is. He pushed off the wall. For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. I'm not looking for anything. I'm finishing something. There's a difference? Yes. She walked away. Cole watched her go, the coin warm in his pocket, the weight of her trust heavier than metal. 3 days later, the base held a memorial service. Expanded, revised, honest, families flew in, press cameras kept respectful distance. The entire unit assembled in dress uniforms under a sun that felt less brutal than usual. Vance spoke first, about integrity, about sacrifice, about the 11 names and the one who refused to let them be forgotten. Cole spoke second, about what it meant to witness courage, about how the hardest battles are fought in silence, won through patience. Then Nova was called forward. She hadn't prepared remarks, hadn't written a speech. She just stood at the podium and looked at the wall, at the 11 names. I didn't know all of them well, she began, voice steady. We trained together, deployed together. But in the field, you learn who people really are. Fast, you learn what they value, what they'll sacrifice for. She paused, gathering words. They died because someone decided money mattered more than loyalty. Someone who wore the same uniform, took the same oath, then broke it for profit. Another pause, longer. I can't bring them back. I can't undo what happened 5 years ago, but I can make sure it's remembered, not just as a tragedy, as a warning. That betrayal has consequences, that silence can be strength, and that some badges can never be erased, not from paper, not from skin, not from memory. She stepped back. The crowd stood. Applause began, hesitant at first, then building like a wave. Nova didn't acknowledge it, just walked to the wall, placed her hand on one name, Sergeant David Chen, and stood there until the applause faded and the crowd dispersed. Cole found her an hour later, still at the wall. You okay? He asked. No. Honest answer. Only kind worth giving. Cole stood beside her in comfortable silence. After several minutes, he spoke again. What happens now? Nova pulled out her phone, opened a message, showed him the screen. Subject line, Tower 4, still active. Below it, a brief message. 4 survivors confirmed, locations attached. Await your signal. Cole read it twice. There are more. Yes, from other operations, other betrayals, scattered, hiding, afraid to come forward. And you're going after them. Someone has to tell them it's safe now, that they can speak. Cole sighed, long, heavy. You're not going to stop. Would you? If you were me? He thought about it, about the names on the wall, about the weight of the coin in his pocket, about what it meant to let injustice stand unchallenged. No, he admitted. I wouldn't. Nova pocketed her phone, turned to leave. Nova, wait. She stopped. Why did you really give me the coin, before you knew how this would end? Nova looked back at him. Her expression softened slightly, barely perceptible, but there. Because if I didn't come back, I needed someone to remember why it mattered. Not just what happened, not just the names, but why the fight was worth it. And now that you are coming back, now I need you to keep it anyway, because Tower 4 won't be the last. There will be others, and if I don't make it back from one of them, someone has to finish what we started. She walked away. Cole watched until she disappeared around the barracks corner. Then he looked at the wall again, at the 11 names, at the space where a 12th name might someday be carved. He pulled out the coin, ran his thumb over the engraving, made a decision. If Nova went after the 4 survivors, she wouldn't go alone. Not completely. He couldn't follow into black operations, but he could make sure someone was watching, someone who would remember. Nova spent her last evening on base, alone in her quarters, laptop open, files spread across the narrow bunk, 4 faces on the screen, 4 names, 4 stories of survival and silence. She studied each one, memorized details, locations, patterns of movement, potential threats. Each survivor had a story. Lieutenant Maria Santos, last seen in Denver, working security under an assumed name. Staff Sergeant James Park disappeared into Seattle's tech sector after his team was ambushed in Syria. Captain Rachel Morgan hiding in plain sight as a college professor in Boston, and Corporal Daniel Wright living off-grid in rural Montana, trusting no one. All of them betrayed, all of them blamed, all of them silenced by the same machinery that had tried to bury Nova. She wouldn't let that machinery win. A knock on the door. "Come in." Mara Lynn entered, holding a tablet. "Found something you need to see." Nova gestured to the bunk. Lynn sat, handed over the device. "After the arrest, I kept digging. Financial records from Meridian Defense Solutions. They tried to move assets, hide transactions. I tracked them." Nova scrolled through the data. Wire transfers, dates, amounts, routing numbers. A pattern emerged, clear and damning. "They're still operating," she said. "Not just operating, expanding. 3 new contractor relationships established in the last 10 days. Someone's taking over Holt's role." Nova set down the tablet. "Cross needs this." "Already sent it. He's mobilizing a task force." "Good work." Lynn hesitated. "There's something else. One of the new transactions. It's marked for a domestic location, inside the United States." Nova's eyes sharpened. "Where?" "Still tracing it. The routing is deliberately complex, but whoever's receiving it has high-level clearance, military or government." Nova closed the laptop. "Then Holt was just one piece. There's a bigger network. What do we do?" "You've done enough. Give everything to Cross. Let the professionals handle it." "And you?" Nova stood, began packing her gear. "I handle the 4 survivors. Get them safe, get them talking. Then we trace the network back to its source." Lynn stood as well. "Be careful." "Always am." "No, you're not. You're effective. There's a difference." Nova almost smiled. "Fair point." Lynn left. Nova finished packing. At 0400 hours, she loaded her gear into a requisitioned vehicle. No ceremony, no farewell formation, just a quiet departure in pre-dawn darkness. She drove to the gate. The guard checked her authorization, raised the barrier, waved her through. In her rearview mirror, the base grew smaller. The memorial wall invisible in the distance, but she carried it with her anyway. 11 names, 1 promise. She'd finish what they started, or she'd join them on that wall. Either way, the fight would continue, because some missions don't end when the shooting stops. They end when justice is served. And justice, Nova had learned, was patient, but it was also inevitable. The highway stretched ahead, empty in the pre-dawn gray. Nova adjusted the rearview mirror, checking not for pursuit but for habit. Old instincts died hard. Good instincts kept you alive. Her phone buzzed once. Encrypted message from Cross. "Santos confirmed contact, willing to meet, coordinates attached. Window closes in 72 hours. Nova typed back with one hand, eyes on the road. "Acknowledged. En route." Denver first, then Seattle, Boston, Montana. 4 survivors, 4 stories, 4 pieces of a puzzle that would bring down an empire built on betrayal. She pressed the accelerator. The vehicle responded smoothly, eating miles like a predator closing distance. Behind her, the sun began to rise, painting the desert in shades of copper and gold. The colors of fire, the colors of sacrifice, the colors of dawn after the longest night. 2 weeks later, Cole received a package, no return address, just his name and rank printed in block letters. Inside, a photograph. Nova standing with 4 people, different faces, different ages, but the same look in their eyes that Nova carried. Survivors. On the back, written in Nova's precise handwriting, "They found their voices. Thank you for keeping the faith. The coin is yours until I need it back." Cole pinned the photo to the wall in his office, right beside a printout of the memorial. 11 names in granite, 5 survivors in flesh. He looked at the challenge coin on his desk, picked it up, felt its weight. Justice wasn't loud, it was patient, and it was spreading. One voice at a time, one truth at a time, one coin passed forward as a promise that some fights never end. They just find new fighters. Cole set the coin back down, pulled out his phone, typed a message to Nova's encrypted number. "The coin is safe, and so is the promise. Come home when you're done. We'll be waiting." He didn't expect a reply, didn't need one, because somewhere out there, Nova was doing the work that needed doing. The kind that didn't make headlines, the kind that saved lives by ending corruption. And when she was finished, when the 4 survivors were safe and the network was dismantled, she'd come back for the coin. Until then, Cole would keep it. Keep the promise. Keep the memory. Some badges can be erased from paper, not from skin, and some missions, never from memory. The sun rose over the base. Another day, another formation, another chance to do better. And on the memorial wall, 11 names stood witness, waiting for the day when the 12th name could be added not in death, but in honor, waiting for the day when Nova Reed could finally rest. But that day wasn't today. Today she was hunting, and justice was patient.